You're listening to Rochester Trail Riders. The Genesee Valley Greenway is a 90-mile stretch of repurposed railroad bed that starts in the Genesee Valley Park in Rochester, located in Monroe County, and ends in Hinsdale, located in Cattaraugus County. The route was originally the Genesee Valley Canal, which was in operation from 1840 to 1878. Trains traversed this corridor from 1882 to 1963 when RG&E purchased large portions. They later sold these sections off to New York State Office of Parks and Recreation, and in 1991, New York State Parks introduced the idea of a rail-to-trail conversion and officially opened up sections of the trail in 1992. Today, the trail is maintained by a partnership between the public and private interests, and if you're interested in helping improve and maintain the trail, consider becoming a member of the Friends of the Genesee Valley Greenway. Trail conditions are continually monitored for construction, detours, outages, and all this information can be found on their website. They also provide easy-to-print maps of the three main sections, complete with any detours. Greenway is broken up into three sections that we're going to call North, Central, and South. Today's adventures, we're going to focus on the northern section. This spans from Rochester to Avon. Horse trailer parking for this area can be found on Brooks Road north of Scottsville and the Erie-Attica spur in Avon, New York. The few miles north of Brooks Road that head into the city are not overly horse-friendly, and unless you are planning on a kind of drop-off situation with a crazy friend like I had, well, I wouldn't recommend it. Typically, right about this time, I'd go into a scripted story of the journey along the trail, but with a partner in crime, I thought it'd be a heck of a lot more fun to include her in the storytelling. So I leave you with an interview-style narrative as we discuss our preparations, trail conditions, planning, gear, mishaps, and everything along the way. I hope you enjoy. Guys, we are here today with Kim McGann, who was crazy enough to join me on an adventure, because I called her up one day and I'm like, "Yay, Kim, you feeling adventurous? Do you want to do something stupid?" And she says, "How stupid?" And I go, "The first 18 miles of the Genesee Valley Greenway in one shot, starting in the city, ending at the Erie-Attica Trail." And you said yes.
Yeah, I was actually just flipping through my phone looking for the original text message, which, yes, was something like, "Hey, I've got a harebrained horse adventure. Do you want in?" And I just remember responding, "Yes." And then the next message said, "What is it?"
You committed. You were done. It was like, awesome. So what's actually funny is we're recording this here at Easton's, which is where I wrote that message, because a little bit of liquor was involved in making this decision. And my lovely husband, when he heard of my idea and was willing to be my chaperone, said, "You know, it might be a good idea if you have somebody go with you." I was like, fine. And I had to think of somebody on the fly who would be dumb enough to try this adventure with a horse sane enough that can handle, the first 6 miles?
Yeah.
Because I think the majority of our entertainment came from the Genesee Valley pool to getting on the trail at Ballantyne.
Yeah, we kind of had bookends, but yes, we definitely had an entire ride's worth of adventure in like the first 4 or 5 miles. And then we capped it off at the end too, though, and we got to see someone get married, and we'll get to that later.
We'll get there. Because I just remember yelling at the end, "Congratulations!"
I think I'm actually really glad that I didn't quite realize what the first couple miles were going to be like.
I wasn't about to warn you.
Yeah, I mean, I had a general idea, and I was like, okay, I was like, oh, U of R and the airport really are right here, and it was the riding on Scottsville Road, the little bit that we had to do that was actually on the road, but
so our adventure didn't get off right away. We were discussing earlier, somebody was like, "Oh, Lindsay, didn't you hurt yourself?" Because the original day we had planned, I don't even think the weather was the greatest on that day.
Yeah.
And my delightful stallion got loose and left what we like to call sex divots in soggy soil, and I tripped and sprained an ankle in one, and I'm like, 18, 19 miles, not going to do it. So we rescheduled,
And then your trailer had
Oh God, yeah.
your trailer had a
Malfunction.
malfunction, so we wound up, which was fine, but we wound up. I brought Ted, my horse, over in my rig, and then we used that to drive ourselves up. And that, so that was the other sort of.
I don't know why the universe was trying to tell us not to do this. I think I even texted you at one point going, my foal might be calling.
Yes, there was that too. So yeah, there was a whole lot to get this actually off the ground and going. But
I figured we had our 3 between sex divot, trailer malfunction, and a foal scared.
yeah.
I was like, hey, what else can go wrong? We're good now.
Yeah. And we had, I think I have a picture somewhere of, smalls and talls. So it was fun to have Ted and Pete in the trailer, and I've got adjustable butt bars, and, so just a little size differential. And there's a size differential between you and I. So we were almost the same height on my 17-hand thoroughbred at 5'5", and they're
And my 6'2" on a 15-hand pony.
So we had great conversation because we were eye to eye, but it was cute to watch them on the trailer together, their little various sized butts. And
The size difference actually made the ride a little more interesting. I know you were like, oh, we only trotted for this amount. And then I looked at my time and the amount of time I was trotted, and it was quadruple. Because your horse is just lollygagging along, and poor Pete and his short little feet was like constantly jogging to catch up. So I was like, my knees were killing me by the end of that time. But I'm going to try a different saddle next time, but
it's all good. But yeah, so we, it was a little overcast and a little drizzly when we started, and there were some puddles in the parking lot when we pulled in.
I packed a bunch of rain gear thinking they were calling for clearing, but I wasn't sure what it was going to be. I was like,
yeah,
nope.
It was kind of hard to figure out what to pack, because even though we had someone who was going to meet us about halfway where we were going to have a lunch break and had some supplies, but it was like, well, what are you going to actually need on the trail? And I wound up at the very last minute, which I was glad I did. I had a set of saddlebags that Ted hadn't actually had on before, that I had some extra clothing in, and he was a little he was muy caliente when we
It's a little spicy at the beginning,
which is unusual for him. But when we unloaded, and I could tell that the sort of nylon of the saddlebag he'd never had on right behind the saddle was not going well. So I was really glad I made the last minute.
It's always important to add new gear just before a launch.
Correct.
I mean,
right. It's always the way to go.
Imperative to do it that way.
We got the we got the important starting out shots. Here we are.
Yep.
Like in the parking lot, and
Which turned out to be interesting because we had a lot of viewers.
we did. It was interesting. Going, what's that group of people over there? And then there was kind of more people joining, and they were kind of milling around.
So was a pilot.
Yeah, there was a pilot, and then it took a little while to figure out there was somebody with a cape, and then we realized,
Oh, it's a group, a running group that was all in costume,
yes,
and they took off the same time we did.
yes, and they were walking their course they were going to run. So they didn't take off running like we could just wait here and then they'd be out of sight in a minute. So just this big mass of people with like random things flopping and flapping off of them, moving in a mass in front of us as our 2 horses, both of whom have very level heads for going, and you're sure about this?
All right. For as much as that was a little odd to start off with, I was very thankful for them, because the first obstacle we had was that stone bridge over the Erie Canal.
Yeah,
Which is an old stone bridge. It is asphalt, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But it's only got, 2-3 foot walls on the side, which is a little disconcerting. But they seem to be so focused on that group of weirdos in front of them that they were just like, oh, we'll follow them like a lot.
Neither one of them even noticed, because, they were just kind of looking at the group in front and marching along. So, and then I think shortly after that, it was right before we had to go underneath the highway.
Yeah.
And then we met a guy with a really cool giant dog.
Yes.
There was a nice guy with a huge dog.
Who had great recall because he was off leash. And I was like, oh boy. And I was concerned, and he just, one call, that dog was right with him. He leashed it. We said, thanks, have a nice day.
Yep.
Kept right on going.
Yeah. And then, So we go onto the highway, which that was fine. And then the group of runners who were walking, they split off and went another direction. And we made a mistake at this point where we said, well, it's good that we got all the drama and excitement out of the way.
What else do you think we could possibly get?
What could be more exciting than that? And then,
well, you're right next to the airport, and with that comes a firefighting training facility, because it needs to be 20 feet off of the trail with live action fire, hoses, guys in gear,
fire truck with lights on.
You name it.
We come around the corner and I'm like, is that car on fire? Yep. Car
the car's
on fire, full fire hose, and maybe 20 feet from us.
Yeah, plane fuselages where they practice everything, the full firefighting, all of them. And then they stop and they're like, hey, look, it's the horses. And then you're just like, hey,
they were very nice. They did, after as we sort of went right by them, they did shut their hoses off. But that was another moment Pete's always amazing about.
Here's what got me about that. The horses honestly could care less what was going on over there, but heaven forbid a root made the asphalt heave a little bit, and that was terrifying to walk over. Oh yeah, firefighters with hoses, I got that.
I just have to use this. Both horses are really good, but I just have to give a shout out for my horse, who's a thoroughbred. He was a steeplechaser and a turf horse, and people, I often see ads on the Rochester Trail Riders page or whatever that people are looking for really sane, solid trail horses, and then it always says thoroughbreds. And the two most level-headed horses I've ever had have been thoroughbreds. And it was a moment where I like to tell Ted, I appreciate you. Just he's named after Ted Lasso. I appreciate you, Ted, because he would have been well within his rights to freak out. And he and Pete were just like, yeah, well, I guess we keep going, bro.
All right, we got this. And then we had the sign that was the most confusing sign we ever met, which was a steep grade ahead with a biker going down a hill, steep grade ahead. Like, all right, well, I wasn't expecting a steep grade on a flat railroad bed.
And it had rained, and it was a little slippery because this was a paved part. So yeah, we were just like, okay, well,
and then it went on an S curve uphill. We were like,
I think I would probably have to describe as a gentle slope upward.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah,
more than a steep grade. So,
I think I've gone up steeper grades, on handicap ramps.
Yeah. But then at the top of that was the official start. We had the two, the yellow gates
that we're familiar with. The map that actually says you are here, mile 1.
Yep. And we had we had a nice photo op for symbolic start to the journeys. And
I loved it. You had your thoroughbred between the yellow gates. It was like, this is race is starting. Let's go.
That's right. On your mark and set, mosey.
Mosey, because it was all paved.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yep.
So this full section, you were stuck at a walk. It's wet, slippery.
Yeah.
Yep. But it was this area right now, and from there until we made the road crossing, was actually really pretty.
It was, and we, the river or the canal. I think.
No, that was the river.
That was the river. Yeah, is right there. So some really nice views. I got my camera out and took some pictures with foliage and a nice, grass in between, and it was actually quite pleasant.
I think we only met one other hiker on this section.
Yeah, it's quiet,
nice and quiet, wide open, and we did it in the fall, so we had the pretty yellow leaves and.
Yep.
There's something about yellow leaves, wet, black tar. It really popped.
Yeah, the colors were really nice. So we had this really nice stretch, and then we had another curve, and then that took us. I remember sort of going, wait, we go this way, up to our crossing.
Yeah, to the Paul Road parking area, and then you have to cross it. I was like, burn dairy.
And
we got to get to the other side of the road.
I discovered this was where teamwork was important because I went to walk Ted up. You literally had to press the button to get the light to change as if you were a pedestrian. And I volunteered to go do that with Ted, except he's so tall that I literally could not reach down to press the button.
It was like below stirrup lever for you. But don't worry, micro Pete and I metal to handle that. But what's entertaining, what I enjoyed about that was you and your camera were crossing Scottsville Road.
Yep.
With a ton of traffic on these, Beatles-esque white lines going across that the horses are like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And here you are with your photo taking pictures of the cars that they're taking pictures of you.
Yes. Always the photographer. And, since Ted seemed okay to be, he was like, well, I'm just going to follow Pete. And, I figured it would be fun to take pictures of the people who were going, this is not what I expected to see on Saturday morning.
I'm like, and unfortunately, this marked the fun part of the trail where you're on the road. It was pretty wide, and the trail actually is off of the road for a good chunk. You're right next to it.
Right.
But you got trucks, trailers, buses.
We had we had a sidewalk, and we could walk on the grass for most of it. But you were this would not be a place that you would take a horse that you were not 100% confident that they were traffic safe.
And both of them, even though Pete is traffic safe, he's my parade horse for crying out loud. He was eyeballing everything, and we had to stop for 1 minute just to let Ted have his brains. He's like, come back, let's chill, we're gonna be okay. It did do a little loop out and back. They had like a little horseshoe loop, which I think gave their brain a break for a minute. Yeah, which was helpful.
Yeah, we did. We pulled off. Ted, he was good, and he wasn't actually doing anything. He hadn't actually done anything, but I could just kind of tell that he was getting a little bit wound up. And so we did. We pulled off. There was like a parking lot, somebody's parking lot, and we just kind of stopped there for a minute and chit-chatted and whatnot. And then, it was a little better when we went. And then we had the big obstacle, which was the railroad tracks.
You do have to cross the railroad tracks, like the busy ones. So you're eyeballing. You're like, okay, no train's coming. Come on. Let's go. There's a break in traffic because you actually have to be in the road to get across these. And neither of them would go.
Yeah. And it was not the right place to sort of stand and train, and if the road had been closed or for some reason you knew there was no traffic, like if I'd had 3 minutes, it probably could have gotten Ted to go across, like the way same thing with Pete, but you just don't have it. You're like, oh, here's our 30 seconds and kind of get this done.
So I sacrificed myself to quick jump off because, my horse is already on the ground.
It was another good teamwork moment because I'm like, I'm not getting off because I can't get back
and Pete's willing to follow me anywhere, even into a pit of lava, as long as I'm on the ground helping her. So I crossed it, and Ted just was like, well, if he made it, I can make it.
Yeah.
Thank God both of them went right over.
Yeah. And then the next, we were almost to calmer territories, but then we had the last little bit up to the intersection, we had like a sound wall on one side of the sidewalk. So we had a sidewalk, and there was a little bit of a breakdown lane, but the other side was just like a solid sidewall. So there's no place to go. And so we're just walking down to the giant intersection between Scottsville and 52.
That's okay, because one thing we spotted going over that bridge before we hit that wall was a porta pot.
Yes, that is fine.
At this point in time, I'm like, that's where we're going.
And that was actually, so we get to the main intersection. We're making a right-hand turn, so it's no problem. But yeah, it was a little bit, slight detour. But do you remember the name of the park?
It was Black Creek Fishing Access.
Yeah, and it was great. It was, it was away from the traffic. There was an actual porta potty, which was a luxury.
It was a nice big one too, so you didn't have to get all cramped.
Yeah, and more importantly, especially for short me with tall horse, ample rocks and a picnic table to be able to get back on. So. Gave both horses a break.
With it being a fishing access, it did have a boat launch, and we did attempt to give the horses a water break, to which we were leading them into lava at that point, and they're like, heck no.
Well, you can lead a horse to water, but he won't go in without a snorkel, and I left mine.
The detour did give us a nice change, because it put us on a residential street that paralleled Ballantyne, and we decided to, after checking the map real quick, oh my God, this is going to come right out literally across the street from the railroad bed and the Genesee Valley Trail, as we all know and love.
Right. So, yeah, that was great. I was so happy when you said, hey, we could just follow this road. And I have to say, so then it feels like you're just kind of on this suburban back road. And I have to say, extra friendly people on that road. We had 1 or 2 drivers and people in their yards.
Yeah.
Really friendly.
Well, I don't think they ever expected a horse to come down their street. I don't think a horse has come down their street since the 1920s. So they were ecstatic to see just two ponies and being friendly, waving back. And sure enough, we made the corner and poof, there were the fancy yellow gates that brought us on that trail.
Yeah, and it was nice to be there, both to be sort of like
the stress.
Yeah.
On. I don't think we were on that more than about 30 seconds when I'm like, we need to move. I cannot do this 1-2 mile an hour walking thing anymore.
Yeah, it took us a long time. Yeah, there was a lot to navigate. And like, it was funny when we got to the, where the trail is stone dust and, back to forest on both sides. And I was like, I'm really proud, like both horses, really proud that like we did that. And I don't ever want to ride that section again.
I know. I'm happy I did it. It's for a challenge. It's something that I want to do. Is the whole entirety of the Genesee Valley Greenway, and there are other road sections further down the way, but nothing like going through the city of Rochester.
Yeah. So that would definitely be if you're, unless you also want to have this symbolism of having done the whole thing. That first section is definitely not particularly horse friendly, and you're not missing a whole lot scenery wise.
You're not. However, if you do want to give up one of your 9 lives, go for it.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, when we first then got on the trail, got off the road and on the parts that has good footing and trees. We just straight away as far as we could see, and a really lovely trot.
And my husband, who was monitoring us through the Apple Tracker app there, he got a kick out of it because we were going so slow for so long that when we picked up a trot, that little line just kept it was like on the map, and he's like, "Wow, you guys cruise like you're literally going 3 miles an hour up to 12 to 15 miles an hour just in one pace."
Yeah. And this too, if I remember right, this is about too when the weather actually really started to get quite nice. So it had been kind of overcast, and it had rained in the morning, and we thought we might get drizzled on. But as we started moving, it really heading south.
It felt good.
Yeah, and then the clouds sort of started dissipating, and we got some peaks and blue skies. So we were like, oh, this is actually the perfect temperature to be.
Yeah, I wasn't hot. The horses weren't hot. Nobody was sweating. It was fantastic. We did run into some friends of yours.
Yes.
Anne?
Yeah, Anne and 2 of her friends who do work, I think she said, picking up.
Yeah, trail maintenance of some sort.
Yeah, on the Greenway. So, we bumped into them. You never know when you're going to see another horse person, and stopped and had a nice chat and introduced the horses. And so that was fun. And we there was also the occasional bikers we started encountering, which was
stressful. I'm just going to sum it up with stressful. Not all bikers. There were a handful of them that if they saw us coming, immediately stopped, said hello. I cannot stress how much it means just to say hi. Let the horse know you're a human being, and not that swear words that might come along. And thanks, at least now I know you're a human, even though you swore at me the whole time you rode past.
Yeah, and especially for folks coming up behind, to which it's hard because we don't hear them. And then
bell.
Yes, we had someone with a bell, which was wonderful.
She rang it way back, so it caught our attention. So we turned around and could face them, and the horses were perfectly fine with it as long as they knew it was coming and not a surprise.
Yeah. So that the vast majority of the bikers that we encountered were really delightful.
Yes.
And very nice. But we did have 1 or 2 that were not really interested in sharing the trail, and also didn't realize that's the rules also that they have to share. And so we spent a little time chatting about how we could, kind of try to spread the idea that, we need to share the trail. And
well, here's the thing that you and I, after what, 15 miles of running these things, we actually discovered a method to our madness. At one point, if they were nice to us, did you know we would actually yield to them? But if we're in nice. Whoops! All of a sudden, we don't have any control over our horses, and they're in the middle of the road.
Yes, and that is actually something I've done. I ride on the Greenway a fair bit, and Ted does a lot of babysitting duty because he's good about that, and he is generally really good about bikes, especially the ones approaching him. And if bikers won't slow down, I mean, literally aren't going to slow down or stop, and I'll yell and very politely but loudly ask, I just park in perpendicular across the trail.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky enough to have a horse that's okay with that, but it's challenging.
The advent of, headphones, AirPods, earbuds kind of thing. Usually the rule is if you're hiking or biking, you wear one, so you're still aware of your surroundings, and people don't do that. They put both in, and they have noise canceling. They're in their own world, and they have no idea that you're trying to get their attention.
Yeah, and that was something to realize too, because I'm not a quiet person, and so when I'm especially when I'm trying to be loud, and so it took a couple times to realize and seeing them, pull them out of their ears that they literally couldn't hear me.
My favorite comment from one of the guys, though, when we're saying hi, can you say hello? Can you just say hi? Say the alphabet. And he's like, I'm not a talker. I'm like, and we had you speak. Thank you.
Well, one of the things that we talked about and that I thought of, and in my subsequent rides, on the Greenway, having encountered more bikers, that I think I may start doing is, one way to get them to stop is to have something for them. And I was thinking that carrying little bags, even if it was just a couple peppermints, but also with a note in there, that says, hey, thank you for slowing down for a horse. This is the rule, and this is the rule. Might be a nice way to sort of try to spread some, goodwill, but also the knowledge that it really is for everybody's safety. It's not just for us, but we don't want them to get hurt if they sneak up behind a horse. I'm sure lots of people are seeing the videos on Facebook of horses kicking bikers, so we don't want that to happen either. And we want everybody to be able to happily share the trails. So almost all the bikers that we encountered were really nice.
There was just a couple of them, and boy, they made an impression, I'll tell you.
They did.
But speaking of safety and regulations on the trails, I'm not sure if you noticed, there's the Friends of the Genesee Valley Greenway are doing a survey for equestrian riders. It is something I pinned to the top of the Rochester Trail Riders Facebook group. And by all means, if you guys are a rider or driver of the trail in any way, shape, or form, go fill out that survey, because it asks a ton of questions about what you want to see on the trail, what features would you like, and what safety issues or concerns do you have on the trail. So just go throw that out there.
Go do it. I did it already.
Me too.
Definitely, it's the way. I live in Avon, and I'm a member of a little ad hoc committee, the Avon Trails Committee, and we met a couple times this summer to talk about how we might apply for some grant money to improve the Erie-Attica trail area and where it connects to the Greenway. And there was a lot of talk on the committee about making things better for bikers, which is wonderful. We want lots of people to use the trail. But I made a point to talk about, be sure to mention, how much having that lots of riders use the trail, and especially in the kind of Avon area with the good parking to do.
Parking. I should actually speak to parking, because as we're traveling towards Scottsville, it's the Brooks Road. It's Brooks and River. No, River's on the other side, East River Road. So Brooks parking lot was put in by RG&E. Actually, RG&E is the one that technically owns almost all of that trail, believe it or not, and gifted it over. But they're the ones that put in the other big trailer parking area at the Brooks Road, and has a little tiny connector and gets you on. So if you want to start at the north end with the horses and skip the whole city part, you're only missing about a mile of trail to the north of Brooks Road. But it'll get you a good start where you can do a down and back to Scottsville type of thing.
Yeah, good parking matters a lot.
Otherwise, Brooks and Avon are your two parking areas. There's nothing really in between.
Yeah, those are the main trailer. Especially unless you're getting dropped off.
Yeah, if you're doing a down and back, that's your only spots. There used to be a place in the Scottsville area that would let you park it, but it's since been sold, and there's no place to park anywhere there either, unfortunately.
Yeah. So it was pretty uneventful heading down to the park in Scottsville.
Yeah, with a lot of trot, walked, just trying to make up time. we did have to go under the New York State Thruway.
Yes, that's right. And we also, actually, before we got to the Thruway, we had a nice stop at Lock 32.
Yes.
Where, which is right near where Whaley Farms is. It's just over the hill from them. But they've done a lot, like historically, to sort of provide some history there. And there's a nice marker now. And so we had a nice break.
Impressed with how many picnicky areas there are. There's a ton of spots to stop and picnic. I think the only thing they missed on those is a hitching post.
Yeah. And related to the picnic areas is every road crossing
has a "You Are Here" sign.
Yes. But every road crossing also had a mounting block, had stone mounting blocks with a lovely, charming image of horses on the side.
Yeah, they were etched into both sides at the top step.
Yeah.
And they were usually 3-4 step mounting blocks. They were decent size.
2 or 3, yeah. So you'd probably be fine with them unless you were extra short on an extra giant. But they were they were hefty.
They were slightly tall for a tall person getting on a short horse, but by that time I barely lift my legs anyways, so it's welcome.
Yeah. But yeah, so we had a brief stop at Lock 32, which was very nice. But yeah, then continued on. But yeah, we had to go under the Thruway. And as a bonus, when we were actually under the Thruway, and it's echoey, it's a little dark, but there were ample pigeons flying around as well.
I got a kick out of the fact that there was literally a pigeon egg on the ground. And you were like, oh my, there's pigeons. Pete's looking at the fact that there was a puddle because that was terrifying.
And there was a bench under there. Yeah, there's a bench. Like, I'm not sure if people hang out under there, but
just before that, there was a sign for like eggs, and there was a house like way back in the cornfields too. I'm like, oh, if we get hungry, there we go.
But Pete led the way on that one, and then but then once they got under there, Ted was fine too, and then we chugged right along, and we kept going, and that was we were like, well, that's going to be our last big obstacle.
Yeah, maybe.
This is also about when we realized that the map was a little off by about a mile.
I think it's because on the map it had mile 1 being where we started, practically, which technically it was, but that's not where they put the first mile marker.
Yeah, so
it was that after that whole firefighter fun thing.
Yes, so the actual first, or the actual first mile distance wise was, we started at the trailer at the pool, and then a mile later that would have been it. But what was,
they started that as mile 0 there.
Yes. And when we got to the yellow gates and up the gentle slope that was not a safe grade down. So because we had a friend who was going to meet us, do you remember the name of the park in Scottsville, Catawagis Park?
I think might have. So I'd have to look it up.
Quite near where River Road connects with 383 by the Artisan Coffee Shop. There's a lovely park.
In the summer, all the kids are in the creek with inner tubes and having a good time down there.
Yeah. So we'd arranged to have a friend meet us there with some water for the horses and a little food and just to kind of
muck forks and stuff in case anybody made a mistake while they were there.
And by then the sun had come out as well. But we did realize, as I was keeping in touch with our friend who was meeting us, that we were basically about a mile behind where we thought we were going to be, which was fine. But we wound up, the weather was just beautiful, and the park had some lovely picnic tables, and so we were able to just get off. The horses didn't want any of the food we had brought for them. They just wanted to eat grass.
I was fine with that. I tied him to a picnic table and just let him go.
Yeah. And, I was able, it was warm enough actually that I took Ted's saddle off and sponged him off, and then he was dry an hour later,
and the blue skies, it was gorgeous.
It was,
oh gosh, what was it? My lunch was fantastic. I never knew a bologna sandwich could taste so good. I was so hungry.
Yeah, I was hungry by then too. I brought a sort of mixed nutmeg and some seltzer water, but it was just, even though, I've got a comfy horse, you've got a comfy horse, but it was really nice just to be off and be able to stretch and walk around a little. And use the facilities and just to chat.
What facilities?
Well, find a faraway spot.
I needed to investigate some corn later, if I remember correctly, that I just couldn't even get to.
So we did have, so we stayed about 45 minutes and just had a nice chat and relaxed a little bit, and the horses seemed happy. And then, I tacked Ted back up and put Pete's bridle back on and helped, put all the equipment back in our friend's car. Thank you, Ann Katie, who's not on.
Thank you. Oh, a little supported ride was perfect.
It was great. She took a fun video of us too when we kind of
coming across that last bridge.
Yep, coming in. And then we headed off, and we were sort of, we had kind of one more.
So about a mile to the next road crossing.
Yep.
And that was our last road crossing.
But there was a special guest at that road crossing.
It was a delightful guest. But before we could reach him, there was somebody in a car who turned their engine on the second you were right next to his vehicle.
Oh, my gosh.
Not a quiet engine.
No, yeah, I forgot. Oh my gosh, I almost forgot. Yeah, this was another thank you for not killing me, Ted moment. There was a car parked, and we were just about to walk through the yellow gates. We'd just crossed the road, and the car was right there. I could have put my foot
into the window. Like it was what you might have. You don't know.
Literally, as Ted was next to the driver, they turned their car on.
Yeah,
and I just
that was a spook.
Yeah. Blessed that he just went, and that was about it. But you never know.
There were some words flowing, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I might have yelled a little bit.
Oh, it spooked you. It spooked me. It spooked both horses.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
it was just unexpected. I don't know if they didn't.
They didn't do it on purpose.
Yeah.
But they had no idea it was going to cause a problem.
Yeah,
it's not their fault.
But, that's part of trail riding, right?
But the good news is if you did come off, just on the other side of those yellow gates is one of those mounting blocks.
That's right. That's right. A beautiful 3-step mounting block upon whom rested
my lovely husband, who knew it was our last road crossing before we hit 8 miles of trail between Scottsville and Avon. So it was his last chance of coming over and saying hi. And pretty much I just jumped off, gave him a horse and said, I got to go pee. And said our goodbyes, and he wished us some good travels and said he'd pick us up at the end, which was fantastic.
So that is actually probably one of the things that we should mention, because I'm sure lots of riders would be interested, is that other than that one porta potty that we happened to see when we were
by happenstance,
and that's really in the sort of city part, you are on your own for au naturel use of the restrooms. So planning, there are as I said, there are mounting blocks. So, before and after road crossings, if you're concerned about being able to get back on your horse, are your best bets. There are plenty of places, you're not going to go more than a mile without there being a spot that you could.
So the leave no trace method of doing your outside business is P is P, whatever, have a nice day. It doesn't exist. But to always carry a trowel if you have to do more than that.
Yes.
Thankfully, that was not the case for our road trip.
But that is important. So if you're, if you are doing a longer ride on the Greenway, or, it's summertime and you're hydrating a lot and whatnot, but, being aware of that.
So since this is a long, boring section with nothing really in the middle, with the exception of the Lehigh Valley Trail and, a wedding, What did you pack for your trip?
What did I pack? I was pretty light. So I did pack a halter and a lead rope. So I tied the lead rope around his neck.
Fashionably.
And I was wearing a halter top because I had my halter draped over me because my saddlebags that I had chosen to use weren't big enough to store the halter. But I had a multi-tool. I had some electrical tape, vet wrap, and a sanitary pad, which was actually for horse bleeding, if that happened. I had some snacks for me and a water bottle, and that might have been it because you had first aid stuff.
I did carry. So I like to carry a Camelback. So that's the water for me. And it's also got a couple of zipper pockets, and in those I carried my lunch. along with a human first aid kit and an equine first aid kit. Pretty much things that if we got into a big pickle, I could sedate them and give them pain meds until help arrives, pretty much. Along with a collapsible bucket, which is handy because if you needed to give your horse water at any point, there were places where you could go down to the river, go down to a creek to pick up some water, but having a collapsible bucket made it so I wasn't worried about stop where somebody had to bring us water.
Yeah.
So.
And pro tip, as of November, December 2022, you can buy collapsible buckets for cheap at TJ Maxx and Marshall's in their cleaning section. I now have one and it lives in my trailer, but it was, I don't know, like $7.99 or something. And
They're fantastic.
Yeah. So and would be very easy. I could just hook it to my saddle.
Yeah.
So yeah, would have been super easy to pack.
Yeah, this one it literally just fit on the outside of my pack, no big deal.
Yep.
So.
And it was like, I mean, it would be 2 or 3 gallons. I mean, it wasn't like it was a teeny tiny.
No, they're pretty size when they come out. So that's one thing I like to carry because worst case scenario, I carry 3 liters of water for myself, and I could even parse that off for my horse in there.
Yeah.
So it is something that I do like to carry along with it. But hoof pick is another big.
Yes. Oh, hoof pick. I had one of those too.
Yeah, because you never know when you're picking up a rock and.
Yeah.
the
thing that I like to have on my multi-tool, or that I sort of think is most important, is wire cutters. I'm always, even though we had no plans to go trailblazing or anything like that, but
you step off a trail, either direction is fence. So
yeah, so I do like to carry, if I'm going to be out at all or places I don't know, I try really hard to have.
Traveling down when we got to the Lehigh Valley crossing, because those that don't know or haven't been there, the Lehigh Valley Trail does intersect the Genesee Valley Greenway with one of those nice, big, gigantic train trestles that goes over the Genesee River. And we met up with a cute little family there, their kids.
Did. That was one of the, and that, it's one of the delightful things I find about riding, in addition to the actual riding part. But, I was a horse crazy kid, and just any time I saw a horse in public, and I would pet it. Yes. And I remember the few times that it was okay, and it was like this magic thing. And so it was really fun to bump into a family. And one of the things always adorable when the kids want to pet your horse, but I find it so charming when the adults are equally enchanted. And it's just fun to have somebody come up and ask about your horse.
And yours is the prettiest. And you're like, of course that's the prettiest, but yours is the prettiest. Well, of course mine's the prettiest.
Yeah. And of course, both Ted and Pete were, do you have any cookies for me? And, what... Happy to get some head scratches and, just good ambassadors. But yeah, there was a nice family that was out. We had a lovely chat with them. They were really friendly.
And then it was just long stretches. I think I got off there and walked for a little while. I bought a saddle. It was custom made for him. It's custom made for me, and my knees were killing me. So
yeah,
I went with the choice of riding in a Western saddle because I could put saddlebags, I can put items on it that, to carry. Yeah. Type of thing. If anything was an issue, I'm like, oh, why wouldn't this be comfortable? I've done this for miles and miles in the Adirondacks, but I don't know what it was. That saddle and me, we might have to part ways at some point because it was not what I wanted it to be.
Yeah, I was. So I got off a couple times and walked too, which was more, just to kind of stretch my legs and whatnot. And I was riding English, and I was riding in I have a just Black Country all-purpose saddle. This is actually the 4th horse that it's fit with just some minor tweaks.
You're lucky.
I am lucky, and but I'm always great. I've always been grateful that it has fit different horses because it is so comfortable. And I have to say that I was able to go. We were on the horses for 6 hours almost, and I did fine with my saddle. I was really grateful for that, even though it was nice to get off and walk a bit. But that's so important,
having tack that fits you and your horse. And he was fine. When we got to the end and I took that saddle off, it was perfect wear, perfect sweat, not a ruffled thing. So he was comfortable. I could tell. Not me. So next time I think I'm going to use my my endurance saddle instead.
Another just tip, if you are doing, a ride that's a little, longer than what you're usually doing, and you might not be able to this was a ride where it would have been tricky, especially where we were now, because we had 8 miles with no road crossing. Like, you couldn't really call it quits, or easily. But they make a fabulous product called Body Glide. And if there's any place that you are worried that you might have some chafing, it is totally worth the $6.99 that it costs you for a stick. And that is another thing that was in my bag, because
Just
once you get a little rubbed on a sensitive area, it can be quite painful. So that's a great item to just kind of keep, packed in your bag, that can really save you a lot of misery in the long term. While we're talking, even as well as tack that fits, but
At this point, I think, it was a lot of, walk, trot, up, down, who was taking a turn walking, who was riding, kind of thing, till we got our last mount.
Yeah.
It was a ways down. That was like a mile or two from the actual Erie-Attica junction, if I remember.
Yes, we, because I remember I got off, so again, short rider, tall horse, and middle-aged, so not athletic enough to get on from the ground. That's me. And we had gotten to the point in the trail, we were probably 3 miles from the junction with the Erie-Attica trail.
Which is probably good to know if you don't have a GPS. They actually have mile markers.
They do,
So, if a GPS fails on you at some point, or you can literally just be like, oh, where's the next mile marker? And they're labeled.
Yeah. And I knew from previous rides earlier in the year that that coming up there was going to, in about half a mile, there was going to be a set of boulders that were kind of set off to the side. So I got off. I thought, oh, this will be good. I'll have a little half-mile walk for me. And then we got there and the boulders were gone.
It turned out to be more like, I think we were walking for well over a mile.
Yeah. It was, which was fine, but I was just amused because I literally could not find any place that I could get back on. But then there is maybe a mile from the Erie-Attica crossing, if that. There's a little creek that has a nice...
it's a picnic area.
Yeah, it has a little picnic area. It has some really cool bike rests, like it's stone. Next to a picnic table, they have big blocks of stone that have had a gap cut into them where you could rest a bike. Also doubles as a nice mounting block. I really enjoy using the picnic table. That's about my height. So I was able to get back on. Then we continued on. And then the nuptial.
The nuptial. I like, do you hear music? I hear music. There's a party going on. And then, sure enough, I'm trying to remember the name of that mansion that's right there.
So it's the Genesee Estate.
Aha.
So most people, so they hold weddings there. They also often have estate sales there. It's on River Road.
I just remember because they had a haunted house there too.
Yes, which you can still see the remains of the scarecrow in the trees up high in the back field from the trail that we were on. But yes, we heard music, and we could actually, because most of the leaves were gone, we could see that there was a wedding, and we literally could see the bride and the groom starting to walk.
Yeah, the bride was walking down the aisle. It was awesome. And then, you could hear the pastor, whoever they had officiating, go through, the whole ceremony.
Yep.
And, we just kept walking right along until we actually made up the junction, took our photos. Once again, all by the Erie-Attica sign. He was like, hey, this is the end of where we made it. Woohoo! And I think just about the time we got up, because there's a bit of a hill to get up.
A gentle slope. Not a steep grade, a gentle slope.
Got up to the top, you could hear them. I now pronounce you man and wife.
And then
we yelled. We had a party for them. So whoever got married on that weekend, I think it was the last weekend in October.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
So we're on the last stretch now. And this is a stretch that I've ridden on a lot.
I've
been on a
constantly. Yeah.
So it's about a mile from the Greenway back to the Erie-Attica trail. It's flat with like
S curves,
2 little S curves. So people vary in how often they keep their dogs on a leash. We didn't encounter any loose dogs, but it is just something to be aware of, that stretch tends to be the actual Erie-Attica trail.
Yep.
Is generally will have more people on it than the Greenway.
Right.
Because it's crowded.
It's literally a mile. So if you go down and back, it's like quick, easy, fast 2 miles.
Yeah. So we get to we kind of go around the final S curve. We're chatting about, we're excited. We're almost done, and how much excitement we've had. And we're talking about the firemen and the runners and all the stuff. And as we sort of, the last bit, maybe half a mile.
Yeah, easily half a mile.
Straight as narrow, and you can see the bridge. You can see onto the bridge that, you go over to get to the Erie-Attica parking lot.
See, the bridge was not vacant.
Yes. So as we get closer, we start going, it looks like there's people on the bridge.
I think the word gaggle was used multiple times.
Yeah, a gaggle of people, but we can't quite tell what's going on. I said, well, maybe it's another wedding. It is actually, that bridge is a popular place for people to take, graduation photos or wedding photos or prom photos.
They never seemed to move forward. They just stayed there.
Yeah, like a lot of people. But then, as we really get closer, all of a sudden the bridge is cleared. Like, sans one person
on the far side of the bridge. And as we're coming over, there's my delightful husband and our ride home taking pictures of us coming across the bridge for the finale, because the bridge is literally the end of the trail. It is the last thing you do before you hit the parking lot.
So we're probably halfway across the bridge. Both Ted and Pete have done this before, but it clumps and makes noise, and it's just always nice to get across it. And as we get about halfway across the bridge, we realize
the gaggle comes back.
The gaggle is about 25 bike riders who are getting ready to come onto the bridge to do a photo shoot. And as we are still on the bridge, the first ones start to come on the bridge, to which I very politely said,
yeah, I'm out.
Very loudly, please wait.
In a bit of a panic tone. Well, they did. They stopped very quickly, parted like the Red Sea, unfortunately, and expected us to go through the middle of 15 or so bikers on either side, and you advised them to stick to one side, please.
Yes. So yes, it was a Red Sea situation, and there was not a whole lot of space, and it was definitely, even with good horses, I mean, any spooking and somebody would have gotten trampled and
it
tangled in a bike. Yes.
So even a horse stepping off sideways would be a very bad situation, because could...
So we did eventually get everybody to go on one side so we could go by. And so we just step off the bridge, and we're literally, 25 yards from the parking lot. And I'm thinking, well, we've certainly had our excitement. And then I looked up, and someone was hovering a drone over us, and really close. Yes. And what I said was, oh, a drone, as long as it doesn't come any lower. And the gentleman with the drone said, oh, would you like it to come lower? And proceeded to drop the drone.
And then the second he realized that was a mistake, because the horses were not paying attention to the drone, all of a sudden noticed the drone.
Yes. So he sent the drone zooming back to the air. And so we're coming down. There's this last slope, gentle, not steep grade, gentle slope. We're walking down, can see the rig, right? We're almost there. And I'm thinking of all the things that we've done today, and I'm patting Ted because I'm going, oh my gosh, like, he's taken such good care of me, and what a good guy. And I'm literally, I can see the trailer. I'm almost there. And a gentleman on a recline bike with a tall flag off of it is late to join on the bridge for the photo shoot, and is racing across the parking lot towards us on his recline bike with his flag. And Ted decides,
nope,
no thank you. So has a little bit of a moment, to which I went, hey, I can basically spit on my trailer from here. And I just got off. I was like, done. Because of not falling off 5 yards from my trailer.
That trailer never looked so good.
Oh, it was very nice.
That last stretch, just it goes forever. For anybody that drives 390 and you hit that Rush Scottsville exit, right, and then you're just like, when is Avon ever going to get here? Now imagine you're doing that but you're on the Greenway
Yes.
because there's nothing.
There's nothing except a lot of lovely scenery and some good footing.
Oh yeah.
But yeah.
Trail is perfect.
But yeah, I mean, you're in the long haul. You take a stretch. I've actually done that on foot before. I'm doing some walking to get fit for something I was trying to do. And it's a long walk, you got to pack your stuff. But yeah, it was great to be back at the trailer. The horses did drink this time.
They did. We finally gave them water and they're like, oh, you've been starving us this whole time. Like, we've tried multiple times to get you to drink.
Yep. Lots of German muffin cookies for both of them. Alfalfa hay on the trailer. So
Pete enjoyed his alfalfa hay immensely.
Everybody does. We like to Uber people in style, So we loaded up and then
You got to play passenger in your own truck once.
did. I got to ride passenger in my own rig, which was fun. And we dropped Pete off.
Yep.
And then took Ted home. And so what did you do? Did you do anything special or particular for Pete that night or the next day? Did you seem tired or?
You know what? I turned him out and he ran up the hill because he's on a steep hill for his paddock. And ran up to screamed at his ladies because he is a stallion.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm home. I'm like, oh, shut up. But he got an extra meal for his, I don't normally feed my horses dinner, so he got an actual dinner, which he was very excited about. And because he got dinner, so does his boyfriend that lives with him, who was amazed that, food comes twice in a day.
Excellent. Yeah.
Big round bale and a lot of water.
Yep.
And salt.
Yes. Yeah. So Ted also drank quite a bit when we got home, and so I refilled him a couple times. And he didn't get extra food because he's pretty well fed at the moment, but he did get the next day off very much. And then I had a gentle day or two with him after that.
Yeah. I didn't have a gentle day after that because my trailer was still busted, and you were kind enough to unload your horse, drive your trailer back to my place, and drop it off.
Forgot about that.
So that I can go to a horse show with another horse of mine the next day. Because glutton for punishment. I didn't move very well, but whatever.
That's great. No, I'm new to having a rig. I've only had my truck actually for about a year, and then the trailer. I had a different trailer before, but I've only had a rig for about a year, and I keep saying that I owe the entire horse community about 1 million rides because everybody was so kind to me with all my horses, giving me rides, both to go riding and to many, many vet appointments and whatnot. So I'm always happy to try to provide transport. Well, I owe the horse community a lot of Ubers.
It says a lot about a community. One of the reasons why I started this podcast also is to let people know how great of a community Rochester is. And especially for equestrians, we live in a very horse-heavy area with a lot of amenities. And Rochester recently just became the second friendliest city in the United States. So go Rochester. So if you're listening and you're like, oh, maybe I want to move up this way, and you're a horse person, we'd love to have you.
It really is the secret, the hidden gem of it's hard to find places that have so much open space and public space that you can ride or drive on that also have a reasonable cost of living. It doesn't cost a fortune to live here. It's Southern Pines and Aiken, and I mean those are wonderful places, but you got to have a particular kind of job, which bless, But
I don't have that one. Working for a college.
Yeah.
Oh wait, you work for a college too, so
I do. But that I really do think it's that combination of things that you don't have to be independently wealthy to be able to rent or buy a house here, and the board prices are reasonable, the hay prices are reasonable.
We live between two racetracks, which gives you access to fantastic veterinary care.
Yep, and lots of off the track thoroughbreds.
Yeah, highly recommend. Well, thank you so much for taking time today.
Oh, thanks for inviting me on the crazy adventure, and I can't wait to do the next the next bit. I take tons of photographs, but I almost never print them, And I did actually print and go buy a photo album for this Genesee Valley Greenway adventure. So I printed pictures of both of us, and I put them in an actual scrapbook. And when we finish, I'm just going to have this Pete and Ted's excellent adventure on the Greenway.
And I'm going to make sure that a lot of these photos that we took, because both you and I went photo crazy on this adventure. So part of the show notes for this one and the actual post page that I have will have lots of photos showing a lot of the things that we described along the way. So if you're inclined to do this crazy adventure, especially the first 6 miles or so, you'll have a very good understanding of what to expect.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Well, thanks.
all right. Have a good one. Thank you very much. That wraps up today's show. Until next time, respect the trail, wear a helmet, and clean up after your horse at the trailer site. Happy trails.